money aside, they deeply desire love, connection, to be heard, to be understood. There's all of these things that they need to be open to letting out of themselves and at the same time letting in what they want.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mind to Lead podcast. And today I'm very excited as I'm about to have an amazing conversation with Stacy Raske. Stacy is a Soulful Success Coach, I love that, leadership mentor, boundaries expert, author and speaker, and was also recently featured in Business Insider as one of the top 20 mindful leaders leading us into a better 2021. Stacy, amazing to have you on the podcast today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It is an honor to be with another one of the top 20 mindful thought leaders guiding us into an amazing 2021. So
Yeah. Well,
it's an honor.
we were just saying before we jumped on the podcast, I'm literally just making my way through the list because there's just so many incredible people on this list, obviously yourself included. So let's talk about that because you don't get nominated as one of the top 20 mindful leaders leading us into 2021 if you haven't had an incredible journey, you don't have an incredible mindset. So I'd love to know a little bit more about who is Stacy, your journey, and yeah, what's brought you to where you are today.
Oh my goodness. Like that's so big and open, right? Where do we start? Where do we start? Well, I think the biggest thing is just like you said, you hit the nail on the head that we don't get into the position of being a thought leader, a change maker, a trailblazer without coming from some hardship, some trauma, some struggles, some, triumphs along the way, and some powerful life lessons that we've leaned into, learned from, and have now allowed to guide us. Because obviously, if we are thought leaders, we lead by example. And that's everything that I'm all about, is taking all of the stuff that I share is based on my own trauma recovery story, my addiction recovery story. And what was interesting is, even though I'm an Iraq War veteran, in the Army, I did chemical and biological warfare detection. During my trauma recovery journey, I realized it wasn't the experiences I had in the military that were causing my issues. It was actually way older than that. It was actually childhood trauma. Wow. I love my parents. They're great people. However, they had their own traumas, they had their own baggage, they had their own toolkits and things that just were not ideal and left them very emotionally unavailable, and kind of set the stage for me to become a high achiever, learn to wear the good girl mask, dim my light, shine or hide my power and my truth just to play the role. Growing up, it was really, for the most part, it was my mom and I, because they divorced. And it was interesting how much I turned into that people pleaser and really focusing on taking care of my mom, even though, she took care of me. But it's interesting, especially as an only child or the oldest child, how much we kind of feed back into our parents' sort of emotional cycles and things like that. And so I learned to play the role and was just always disempowering myself and focusing on everybody else, and got a lot of validation and what I thought was love through, success and, good grades and behaving and all of those things. And over time, that created a prison of really rejecting my truth, and also unhealthy coping, because I was really avoiding my thoughts and my emotions. And so after I got out of the military, it was kind of a 10-year downward spiral that was very slow, of just continuing that journey of rejecting my truth, rejecting my power, rejecting the things that were inside of me that were just screaming to get out, because I was building a life of shoulds. And so it was, go to college, get married, get the corporate job that's safe with good pay and benefits, buy the house and the nice cars, and do all the things. It was just checking the boxes. And every one of those checking the boxes slowly was just chipping away at my soul. And I learned to numb out, and I avoided, and I numbed out with food, alcohol, drugs, work, social media, television, even at my worst, self-harm. Just anything to change how I was feeling in the moment because I didn't know how to handle me. And
Mm.
most people didn't really know how to handle me. So I was that control freak and the perfectionist and the type A personality, the quintessential negative expression of what it means to be an alpha woman.
Mm.
And then the opposite of that was just really extreme, um, extreme kind of imbalance, depression, anxiety, chronic health conditions. I was 100 pounds overweight at that point of my rock bottom moment. My marriage was in shambles. Actually, I'd lost my career because of my health. And needless to say, the end of 2014, I just had the gift of this moment of clarity that I had no idea who I was. I completely hated myself. I was actually shoving food in my face and chasing it with booze and had this clarity moment of like, what am I doing? And it was, I'm trying to make myself look as ugly as I feel inside. And I
Yeah.
hated myself that much. And so, needless to say, the woman you see today that everyone knows, and to be that mindful thought leader, has only been a just over a 5-year journey.
Wow.
And so, massive success can happen in a very short period of time.
Yeah. Wow. I'm actually quite emotional by all of that. I just felt like you were just so open and you just said some absolutely beautiful things. And I think that's just such a powerful story. And just because this is what tends to happen, right? Like people see you now in Business Insiders, one of these mindful thought leaders, and they think, oh God, she must have it all together, just and obviously you do now, but you didn't. And I think that where you've come from to get to where you are now, what an incredible journey. And you said something really powerful in that conversation just then. You said, I was building a life of shoulds. And I think that there's a lot of people out there that are going just through the hamster wheel now. And one thing I believe that this pandemic has allowed people to do is take a pause and actually audit their lives and go, this house that I have and I have this huge mortgage on, do I need it? The 2 cars on the drive, do I need them? I think people are really starting to look within now as opposed to look externally. So I would love to now, you talked about just 10 years and you hit rock bottom. What happened? Like, when did you suddenly wake up and go, right, enough's enough, and start turning your life around? And what did that process look like?
Oh yeah, and I completely agree with you where, it's beautiful seeing how what has happened over 2020 created such a pattern interrupt where people are realizing, wow, I was focusing so much on these external conditions and that was really the quintessential trap that I was in, right? Those shoulds. It was all this external stuff that I was chasing or using as the distraction or using it to fill the void that was going on internally. So, oh, yes. Okay. Now I'm getting all emotional. Okay, let's go back. Let's refocus. Okay, what's your question again?
Yeah, so in terms of like turning your life around, like you hit rock bottom, you were saying you were like eating food, chasing it with alcohol, you were overweight, and you were just basically trying to make yourself look as ugly as what you felt inside, which is just wow, like that to me is like total rock bottom. And then to turn out to the beautiful, gorgeous woman I'm speaking to now is so inspiring. So yeah, talk to me. How did that transformation look?
So it was really funny because it was very fast. It was very fast. And I think having that moment of clarity with myself that because I'd spent so much time avoiding being with myself because I was using everything under the sun to avoid whether it was hustle and hard work or the food or the drugs or the alcohol or focusing on other people. And literally what it was thank goodness for therapy. I was in therapy, trauma therapy at the time. But after that moment of clarity, I went to the therapist and I told her, I said, you know what? This is what happened. And I said, I'm done. I am so done. I'm throwing in the towel. She's like, all right, what are you throwing in the towel for? I said, I'm done trying to control anything other than myself. And that flipped everything upside down. Now, granted, I did not have mentors or coaches yet. So like a lot of things, it was very all or nothing. So I did go into this transformation journey for the first year in a bit of an unhealthy way. It was very all or nothing because I didn't understand how to have boundaries. That's literally how I became a boundaries expert, was just like, okay, I got to learn everything I possibly can because I have no boundaries and mine are totally jacked up. I need to learn some boundaries. And so it was a very awkward, but it was literally like a light switch of just, I am all in for me for the first time in a long time. And that's what it was.
That's really powerful. And you said I'm all in for me then. How important do you think that whole self-love, self-esteem, just, you know, making peace and accepting who you are is in terms of like moving forward?
It is absolutely everything. Everything that we are able to do externally is a reflection of what's going on internally, and it all starts internal. Um, and I mean, even the work that I do with my clients, it really is all about building a relationship with ourselves, because that was the one relationship I didn't have in my entire life. That was the one relationship I never really had. I started to get it when I was in the military, when I joined the military and kind of going through basic training and, you know, my business schooling and all that stuff in the Army. But it didn't fully form because then I found other distractions
Yeah,
from,
yeah.
from my baggage. You know, I found my husband and I found, you know, people to hang out with, you know, and just other stuff. But for a while there, I did have the opportunity by myself. No guy, no booze, no family, no nothing to just use as a crutch. It was just me. And that was what I was avoiding my whole life, was just truly being with me and being in a relationship with myself. I'm like, holy crap. I've got all these bullshit stories in the background that have nothing to do with me. And they've been driving my bus. That, you know, the stories that say I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable or deserving, that I can't do something with ease and authenticity. I got to work hard or suffer or sacrifice or struggle or pay something, some price to prove that I earned it or that I deserve it. And the more I built a relationship with myself, the more I learned to love and accept and embrace all of it, like the good, the negative. I mean, hurt people hurt people. I've been the abuser as much as I've been a victim. You know, I've been mean. I've done those things. To step into that place of just forgiveness and release and just healing the trauma and the hurts. And it's like, those are the most powerful lessons that we could ever have. And that's where our power comes from that darkness that we spend a lifetime avoiding. And that is what has helped me catapult so quickly in my life, in my business, my marriage. We're about to hit 20 years
Oh,
together.
congratulations.
Thank you. Like, we've been through it all.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. You know, I mean, I've kept that. I lost 100 pounds in 2015, but I've kept it off with such ease. And like, it's just my health keeps getting better and more, greater vitality and energy. And obviously, the business at this point now, same thing, just massively catapulting. And it's by doing things that I never thought were possible, like really building a life based on what feels good, on pleasure, like a business that it's like, ooh, that sounds cool. Let's follow that for a little bit. Like really following what feels good and breaking out of the hustle and the fear and the scarcity. And oh, it feels so good.
Yeah, what a liberating way to live, hey. And look, you said some really amazing things there as well. And just going back to the whole self-love piece, you mentioned forgiveness, and I think this is a really, really key piece in the whole really getting to know yourself and really getting to love yourself, and the whole forgiveness. And I think this is where a lot of people struggle, from what I can see and what I hear. And you know, they blame their parents, they blame, you know, ex-partners, they blame it's all everybody else's fault, right? And I think that the hardest thing to do is to realize that we are responsible for the position that we're in, and then go on that self-love journey. But I'd love to really talk to you about how did you go about the forgiveness piece, and just I guess shed some light on it, because some people go, oh, I'm condoning that person's behavior. I'm like, no, that's not what forgiveness is about. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Oh, yes. Oh, this is going so juicy. Thank you. This is so good. No, it is. Forgiveness is such an interesting thing. I think a lot of that was not the first step. I think that is the big challenge for people is I think we go into the process of healing starting with forgiveness. And I don't think that's necessarily always the best option. I think there's a lot of building this trust, love, and understanding with ourselves first, filling the cup first, almost to the point of, guess what? We're getting so full, there's no room left to hold on to the anger, the resentment, the hurt anymore. Kind of addressing it a little bit differently. I think a lot of people step into it still in the pain, the victim energy. Even if they are empowered to where they're no longer in the victim energy, there's still a lot of hurt. So I feel like if you fill the cup first with the love and the healing, and then that's just the natural part of the process. And then I found for me, it was about being able to step into the observer place, really disconnecting the emotional trigger and being an observer, whether it was of myself, whether it was of somebody else, my husband, an ex, my parents, whomever it was, and just observe that they're working with the toolkit that they had at the time. Like, that's it. I was working with the toolkit I had at the time. And if I'm observing in that way without the emotion, and I can learn the lessons from the situation, it's no longer a hurt, a pain, or a wound. Now it is a benefit. Now it's like, oh, okay, I know that's not going to happen again because there's that lesson, or it might happen again, but differently. But what I'm building the skill of is becoming the observer, disconnecting the emotion, and learning the lesson. Because if we learn the lesson, now our past has value. It takes away the pain and the hurt, because now I'm like, no, this was good. But at the same time, I can let go of all the other bullshit that doesn't relate to the lesson. I can let the rest of it go, keep the lesson, and move forward. Because now I'm empowering myself rather than staying prison to my past.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such incredible advice. And I just think that people who are listening to this right now, and they're on this journey, because there's a lot of people who are, and for the first time as well, there's a lot of people who are in isolation or are spending time with themselves, and perhaps really things are coming up for them, and I think instead of like allowing yourself to get caught up in the story and adding more suffering and pain and and sort of creating this identity around this past, it's like accepting it, acknowledging what happened, and then choosing to sort of release it and try and let it go, which I know is easier said than done. It's a process, right? And you said it's been a 5-year journey for you, even though it happened quite quickly, the transformation. It's still an ongoing process, right? I mean, I say this to people all the time, it's like, it doesn't just stop. You don't just suddenly wake up and go, I'm going to stop meditating, I'm going to stop learning, I'm going to stop growing, I'm just going to be this happy, mindful, incredible person all the time. It's a daily discipline. So I love to get into that now in terms of like, what you do sort of on a daily basis to make sure that you still stay in this incredible mindset and you don't go back into old patterns of behavior.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. It is a process. And I mean, even now, I am being an observer to what's going on and realizing like I've moved so far away from the using external things to celebrate even at this point. Like, how usually, woohoo, big win, mindful thought leader, yay, right? Like, let's go get a beer, let's go get some food, let's, do something. And it was really leaning into like, wow, all those are still external things. And every one of those external things is actually taking away from my emotion. And so I'm stepping into the place of radical celebration, which means radical celebration is holding space and feeling not only the positive emotions of like, yeah, this is amazing, but also those little little tiny negative emotions that also come up when good things happen, because it's part of that expansion of your abundance capacity that says, hey, there's still a little story that says like, who are you? Or wait till they find out you're an imposter, or like whatever the story is. We've all got the little voice, and it's not even the big inner critic, but there's a little voice. And we can get so focused on the positive in the place of almost a toxic positivity, as many of us get sucked into in personal development, that we ignore those parts. And so now I'm in this place of radical celebration of like, I'm giving myself permission to feel all the feelings. And it's weird and it's awkward. And I'm just like, I'm still figuring out what is this new way of celebrating for me. So it's always stepping into these new places. But to allow that to happen, you are spot on. It is a routine every day, non-negotiable. I have an AM and a PM routine. I'm so thankful that one of my absolute very first mentors, his was all about bookending the day, both in the morning and at night, not just in a morning routine. So, my morning routine, thankfully over the last 2 years now, I've been able to learn how to meditate. And again, not a pro, always a work in progress, as the consummate overthinker. Like, even if in the half hour I meditate, I have maybe 2 or 3 or 5 minutes of clarity, it's something, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes too, it's just you get great ideas too. But it's meditation, happy dancing every day, huge, so important. Just moving the body, all that good stuff. Exercise is great. It's not something I do every day, but I do a lot of exercise, and I have to be in my body. I have to. Planning my day, because otherwise I am a scatterbrain. Like the ADD gets out of control. And so many really driven, ambitious, visionary alpha leaders, such as myself, were balancing this tightrope of high sensation seeking, right? This vision, driving, and the ambition, and a lot of that really great masculine energy, but also this high sensitivity and high empathy. So we're perceiving the world differently. And so just the ADD can easily get out of control. So plan my day is huge. And then a couple anchor things in the morning as far as wellness, and that can vary, am I taking some supplements? Am I doing some other things? And then in the evening at night before bed is a lot of celebrating my day, tracking my successes. What are my gratitudes? Some journaling, good things from the day. There's a lot of those different things. I even do kind of a nighttime type of happy dance my spiritual advisor gave me. That's really good too, to sort of ground and anchor back into my body at the end of the day. So total non-negotiables, 7 days a week.
Yeah, beautiful. And I just think that's it, isn't it? It's like people go, oh, I've read this book, I've done this course, I've had therapy, I'm good. And it is an ongoing process. And it's something that I think the more you do it, the more you enjoy it. Like if I go a couple of days without meditating, for example, I'll go, oh, I need to check in. I need to just remove myself and just go and sit for 30 minutes and just be with Georgie. Or if I haven't exercised for a couple of days, I'll be like, right, I need to do something. I need to move my body. I'm very in tune with that. But I think that's because I've done it for such a long period of time that now if I don't do it, I miss it. And this is what I tell people. It's like it might seem difficult to begin with, like change new habits always is. 6 days to create a habit. But the more you do it, the more it just becomes it's just automatic. I don't even think twice now about waking up, putting on some music, meditating, going for a walk, going to the gym. It's like I don't even need to think about it. It's just part of my morning routine, like you say. So I'm really big on routines. And like you also touched upon something that I think I really want to dive into now, is that whole balance piece. You talked about the masculine energy, and this is something that myself, I'm sat here and my husband's like nodding along too as well, because throughout most of my 20s, I was very masculine energy. I was very goal orientated. I'm not going to be happy until I get this promotion, I earn this much money, I buy this house, I have this car, all external and very, very masculine. And what I've really learned to do over the last sort of couple of years is to really get to know me more through meditation, through journaling, through all that good stuff. but really tap into the flow, the ease, the spiritual side of me, and that feminine energy, which is, I won't lie, there are still days where I have to really watch it, where I'll get this like bout of anxiety and I'll go, right, we're going to do this. And as soon as I see that and feel that come up, I go, oh no, this isn't the Georgie now. You're not this person anymore. So I'd love to talk to you about that and how you balance almost like the yin and the yang, the masculine, the feminine, and what that journey's been like for you.
Oh yes, it is. It is. It's so interesting. It was stuff that I think prior to this journey over the last 5 years, I had no idea what it really meant to be in this place of energetic balance, because that's what it is. You got masculine energy, feminine energy. It has nothing to do with gender. Everyone has it. And the most influential leaders in the world, it's balanced. They bring in this beautiful amount of strength and authenticity and vulnerability, which is all the feminine energy, with the safety and stability and integrity of the masculine energy. And they've got both sides really dialed in regardless. And so that was a big piece for me, where I realized from my childhood trauma, seeing that women were disempowered, they had no voice, men were in that place of power and control in our lives, in our family. And so I learned early on that if I wanted to feel powerful, I had to be in masculine energy. So it was just hustle. And what I learned was, it was through control. And so I didn't know how to create safety internally, and I didn't have safety externally. So what a lot of us do, and most of us understand it as the wall, right? We've got the wall around our heart. We've got the wall that blocks people from getting in, blocks us from being hurt. And that wall, for me, what kept that going especially was, I can create feelings of quote unquote safety through control. The more I can control, it helps offset the fact that inside I feel completely out of control. And so it was hustle and doing. And like when I went to college after I got out of the Army, straight A's. So much so I graduated valedictorian. And people are like, wow. Of course you did, because like you're so like alpha, but it was really looking back like, wow, not only was I needing that external validation to create safety, at the same time, it was not long after my husband and I got married. And so it was an easy way for me to avoid intimacy and vulnerability with him, avoid connection because I'm busy, I'm hiding in my schoolwork because it's safe. Same thing with work, right? Like hide in work. And that's still something I put energy and effort into. In fact, he was just, before I got on this, he's like, hey, you need to check your boundaries again because you're starting to deviate. And I told him, I said, yes, I've been observing that I recently was going through a little bit of trigger, a little bit of trauma response. And so the default is going to hustle. It's still a thing, even with all the work, but now there's no judgment with it. I can just say, oh, okay, what can I learn? How do I fix it? Kind of going through that process. So that's why it's so important for me to nurture my feminine energy, because I just learned my whole life, reject it. And so, the easy understanding is masculine in our head, feminine in our body, right? If you want to trust your intuition, if you want to trust anything, you got to be in your body, because that's that beautiful feminine energy. And so many of us who have goals, if you want your goals, we've got to also be able to release the things that don't serve us. We've got to let go of those things, let go of control, and at the same time be open to receive what we desire. And that is so important, because that's all the feminine energy. The visibility, the vulnerability. Like so many people, money aside, they deeply desire love, connection, to be heard, to be understood. There's all of these things that they need to be open to letting out of themselves, and at the same time letting in what they want. And so we've got to nurture that part. And that's why the exercise, eating well, like just taking care of yourself, but really building that relationship with you, because it all starts with you. And if you are willing to trust yourself, love yourself, be willing to literally receive love from yourself, kindness, it really starts that process. So important.
Yeah, that's absolutely beautiful. And I just think there's so many people that can relate to everything you just said then. And I was definitely nodding my head, because it's definitely a trigger for me if I feel like things aren't going to plan, instead of taking a step back and going, okay, well, what's going on, and taking the bigger picture and going within, I'll throw myself more into work. And I have to be very, very aware of that, because it is just my default. And like you said, then it's just that whole masculine energy. But when I tap into the flow and the ease and the intuition, like I actually get more done, and more success comes my way. And I'm like, why can't I just be in this flow all the time? So it's something to be very aware of, and something that I have become more aware of as I sort of go on this journey, because I think the journey's never ending, right? And one thing that I keep on reminding myself is that it's not the outcome, it is the journey, it's the process. And I think that this is where we lose ourselves a lot. It's all about, we live in a society that's very outcome driven, right? This is what success looks like. And on that note as well, like you've obviously experienced a lot in your life, and I ask this question every time. So what in your mind now does success look like to you?
Oh, I love that. Yes, yes, yes. And you're right too, just on what you were sharing, that I get more success, more gratitude, more joy in the balanced energy rather than just being in hustle mode. Like the more that I'm constantly allowing myself to be in that feminine energy, for the clarity, for the alignment, for the trust, the ease, the flow, it opens the gates to everything. Way more focus, way more productive, way more aligned action, way more of those amazing clients, way more income, way more love. And, everything just becomes really orgasmic. I mean, really, that's what it is. And I think that's what success is now, my new definition of success, because of course it used to all be the external stuff. And my definition of success now is all about, who am I being and how does it feel? If I feel good, am I feeling joy? Am I being present? Am I engaging my senses and really savoring the moments and the experience? Am I connecting with the people I'm with? Do I feel aligned and in like that high vibe space, whether it's impacting a large audience, like the opportunity to do with an amazing podcast like this, or with the article, or, on big stages, or is it just those moments by myself where I'm like, holy shit, look how far you've come. Look at what you've been able to accomplish. And look at how many people saw the amazing things in you before you did. And that's what's so juicy. Like, none of this happened alone. No. And that's what's so important too. None of us are meant to do it alone. We're supposed to have community and tribe and support, and it's just so amazing. So it really is just like, is this about joy and peace and ease and love and connection? And whether it's by myself or with others, it's like, it feels good.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I just think you just very, very humbly put then as well, because I think that one thing that I used to do a lot myself was that I used to have this attitude of, if it's going to happen, it's all down to me, and I wouldn't like ask for help. I was sort of saw that as a sign of weakness, and I just tried to do it all, and I ended up just burning out basically. And there was zero joy. And I achieved all these outer things of success, and actually inside I was miserable. I was empty. And I remember having this goal of buying my first house, and I got there and I moved in and I was like, is this it? I was expecting to feel something, and I felt nothing. I felt empty. And I just remember sitting on the floor of this, the first home that I bought, looking around at these walls and go, I was really expecting to feel more than this. It was a real wake up call for me, because I'm like, right, Georgina, this is serious. Like, you can't go through your life chasing these external things and not giving you joy. So I think what you just said then about your idea of success is just so beautifully put. So let's tie this conversation around. So what you do now, so obviously you coach people who really want to feel that soulful success. So how would you define soulful success? Is it just what you said then, that ease, that joy, more internal than external?
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. I mean, obviously it looks different for everyone, but I think that sums it up really well is just being in a place of being proud of themselves, being proud of who they're being and how they're showing up in the world, and knowing that they're creating an impact and leaving a legacy of change, while at the same time being an amazing mom or a phenomenal wife, or leading their team in their business with authenticity and inspiration. That's the stuff that really gets them going, because I work with alpha women. And what's so funny is how many of these women don't even identify as alpha, because they'll be like, I'm so introverted. And I'm like, guess what? I'm not an extrovert. People, they meet me and they think I'm such an extrovert. I'm like, I'm the quintessential ambivert. But, but what it is a lot of the women do connect to having been called intimidating. And that's the big one. They're like, oh yeah, I've definitely been called intimidating a time or two. Or sometimes it's just they're really, really, really high achievers, but at the same time getting some negative feedback from their drive, their ambition, their visionary way of being. And then others just know, they're like, oh yeah, I'm so alpha. But what it is whether they know they're alpha or not, it's about unleashing that power and potential that we all have to be the leader our business, our message, our mission needs us to be. Because we've got to be in that leadership. And it's not the type of leadership that's intimidating, because again, a lot of leaders learn through the hyper masculine or toxic masculinity, sort of patriarchal, historically patriarchal type of leadership, that it's a very negative type of like alpha leadership energy. And that's not what this is at all. It's really reaching the next level where you're leading this beautiful, balanced energy, where you're able to influence people with your leadership because you're so aligned. You've got the strength, you've got the vision, you've got the safety, the stability, the integrity, and you're also being vulnerable. You're trusting your team. You've got to have both the masculine and the feminine energy included to be an influential leader, or what I lovingly call influential, because the root Latin of influence is actually in flow, which means you're leading with your feminine energy. It's so good. It's so juicy. And for the women that I work with, they so need it. Every one of them's like, yep, control issues. I so see it. And it kind of goes back to the deep primitive brain, right? Like you just said, when that happens for you, you're like, oh, something happens, go into hustle. And it's just the safety. And that's what it is. So we're also focusing on empowering their innate masculine energy too, to move away from control and create internal safety with healthy boundaries. And then that gives them this beautiful platform to really let their beautiful feminine energy shine. And that's like the inner rebel, that's the trailblazer and the change maker that goes against the status quo and inspires things like entrepreneurship and writing a book, really fun stuff like that, the creativity of our inner child, all of that stuff, the emotion. I mean, people are always like, wow, Stacy, you have no problem crying on the drop of a hat. I'm like, I have full access to all of my emotions, and I love that part. Like, as much as I can be like, all right, this is what we're doing, boom, boom, boom. But in the same time, be like, and inspiring and elevating people by holding space in a way that gives them permission to feel their emotions. Like,
Wow.
it's so good. Like, that's influential,
I
But
love
that's like
that.
really epic leadership.
Yeah, I completely agree. Where were you 5 years ago for me? Hey, I could have done with some of this coaching back then. Even
Oh
now,
my
I think
goodness.
everyone can. And that's the thing. It's like, the power of a mentor, the power of a coach, right? And I think, you quickly identify patterns in yourself when you are working with somebody and you're talking it through. And yeah, it's very, very powerful, extremely powerful. So look, for people who are listening to this right now and they want to, reach out to you, they want to be coached by you, Stacy, where should they go? Where can they reach you?
Absolutely. The best landing spot, kind of the one-stop shop as far as the hub for me, is stacyraske.com.
Mm-hmm.
And that gives links to all, my beautiful free Facebook community, my YouTube channel, all the places that I can be followed on all the socials. So yeah, really, really great content. And then some of my free resources are available there as well.
Amazing. We'll make sure we put all the links so people can easily access. But it has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. And I know that everyone listening would have I got so many takeaways from this today. So thank you so much. Absolutely incredible. And I just know you're just going to be going off and destined to do huge things in your feminine energy. It's going to be absolutely amazing. I can't wait to watch your journey unfold. So thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, you are so welcome. Thank you. It has been such an honor and a pleasure. This is so fun.
Amazing. Okay, that's today's episode. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Stacy, amazing. And I will speak to you all again soon. Thank you so much for listening to the Mind to Lead podcast. I really hope you got some great takeaways and key learnings from this episode. To help us spread the message, please give us a rating and leave us a review. We love reading your thoughts and your insights and your learnings. And look, reach out to me. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm Georgie Hubbard. Reach out to me on Instagram. I'm Georgie L. Hubbard. Let's connect. I hope you have an incredible day and I look forward to speaking to you all again soon.